Join us every Wednesday for InFocus, a weekly talk show produced by the St. Kitts Nevis Information Service, where we provide exclusives with key persons within the government and discuss pertinent, relevant, and interesting matters that affect us all. Tune in every Wednesday, live on ZIZ Radio and streamed live on Facebook at SKNIS Media and ZIZ Online. InFocus, your government, your business.
I'm Ian Richards. Welcome to InFocus, a weekly program where we zoom in on what's happening within and throughout the government, your government. On March 26, 2024, the announcement was made in the National Assembly of St. Kitts and Nevis that the federal cabinet has approved a ban on single-use plastics. Previous administrations have mulled implementing such a move, but the current administration, headed by Prime Minister the Honorable Dr. Terence Drew, made the decision, fulfilling a pledge made some 18 months ago. What items are banned under this new initiative? When will it take effect, and why is now the right time to take this action? With us today to answer these questions and more are the Minister responsible for the Environment and Climate Action, the Honorable Dr. Joyelle Clarke, and the Director of Environment, Derionne Edmeade. Stay with us as we delve into your government, your business.
Madam Speaker, the Cabinet has approved the three-phased ban on single-use plastic items across the Federation. This action is a testament to our unwavering commitment to protect our natural environment and foster a sustainable future for our nation.
Welcome back to InFocus, and allow me now to welcome the Minister responsible for the Environment and Climate Action, the Honorable Dr. Joyelle Clarke, and her Director within the Department of Environment, Mr. Edmeade. Welcome to both of you back to InFocus. You're no stranger to the program.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
All right.
Yes, good afternoon.
So we are jumping straight into the questions. Ban on single-use plastics. Tell us, why is now the right time to introduce this ban?
Well, if not now, when? That's really the question at the ministry, and it's been such a long time that we've been working on the moving towards the ban on single-use plastics, and I think that's why in my parliamentary address I said it didn't start with me, it didn't start with this administration, and it's important to recognize that government is continuous. It's been, I think Director can confirm how many years we've been working with our stakeholders to get there. And again, as it relates to timing, if we're going to become a sustainable island state, if we're going to make that transition, there are a number of check boxes, and plastic pollution was one that we had to deal with. So now is the right time. And finally, in the OECS, we're last, but we're not the least. And we have an option to do it, to learn from the mistakes of other countries, and also to benefit from the excellent options that they also took. And coming in last, it's not a problem. So now is the time for St. Kitts and Nevis, and we had to do it. And I'm happy that the department led by Director Edmeade was able to get us here.
Mr. Edmeade, you've been in the department for how many years now?
15.
15 years. So
Only
can you
a little bit of years.
tell us a bit about the conversation when it first, from your memory of course, like when the conversation began to consider, okay, we need to possibly look at banning single-use plastics here in St. Kitts and Nevis.
Okay, so the conversation started, well, long before we even started acting in St. Kitts. So, for example, like 4 years ago, that is when the government really started to really act upon the conversation. The conversation have been at our international sessions and even our regional sessions, but St. Kitts and Nevis would not have made any grounds towards achieving or doing anything about the plastic situation. And over the years, from 2020, just before COVID, we would have started that conversation within the department, and then prior to COVID in 2022 is when I think I would say that the thrust towards pushing the ban or to do something about the plastic really started because we realized that St. Kitts and Nevis was being left behind on the international and the regional scene.
So what consultations were necessary to get us to this stage where we are?
Well, because we understand the importance and the impact that plastic can have on St. Kitts and Nevis, and we realized that even though we wanted to we wanted to do something about the plastic situation, we must first go to our stakeholders. So I can speak some of the things that we did. We gathered some surveys. We did some, street conversations, street questions. We make it our business not to just leave it on the streets, but we also went around to many of the small shops around the island of St. Kitts. We tried to speak to some of the shop owners just to get their insight in terms of what they think about banning the plastic, how much they think that it would impact their business. Following those, we also met with more of the bigger supermarkets, for example, like the Rams and the Hospital and so forth. We had more than one conversation, especially with those who are responsible for the importation, a lot of the wholesale stuff. So we had a lot of back and forth in terms of their perspective and the idea and whether or not they would be prepared for a ban such as this as well. As well as the radio platforms.
Right. And the feedback, what was the feedback like? Did persons really buy into the need that there needs to be this change in St. Kitts and Nevis?
Yeah, of course we had the mixed responses at first, but as the conversation became more internationally recognized, persons started to ask questions. I think one of the pushback we have gotten from the department, from meeting with a number of stakeholders, was comments such as, there's no more consultation needed, just ban it. Because it's what is the Department of Environment doing, because X country or X island has already done something about plastic and we have not done anything. But it was a situation where we did not just want to do it because of the persons who were doing it at the time, because we felt like it was time for us to do it. We wanted to make sure that we do our consultations, that people, we do our awareness, that people really understand the impacts or the negative impacts that plastic have on the environment before we start pushing anything that relates to a banning on plastic.
And Minister, in terms of your participation in regional and international fora, feedback in terms of your colleagues as well, what was your feedback in terms of St. Kitts and Nevis not being there as yet?
So I think I discovered this, I felt it more poignantly when I was at the wastewater conference in Bahamas in 2022, and I stepped into a room and the conversation was the next step for plastics, and I was like, the next step? And I was like, well, unfortunately St. Kitts hasn't done anything. And I said, well, it's only been 3 months, but I guarantee you the next time I get here again, we would have banned plastics. And the conversation then was, they are willing to support. The steps are clear. The models are there. You could choose an Antiguan model. You could choose the Dominican model, the Grenadian model, the Jamaican model. But the point is, you have to fit it to your context and get it done. And that was our commitment. And the staff at the Department of Environment were like, we're ready. Like, we are just ready. And of course, in true form, I said, just one more round of consultation. Just confirm one last time, because it's a new administration and we wanted to make sure what was the reality 3 months prior, 6 months prior was still the reality for us. So the consultations were done, and there was that regional commitment, like St. Kitts come on board. It's not just an international mandate, it's also a regional mandate. It's an OECS mandate, and the support is there for you to do it. So I'm happy that we've gotten it done.
Right. St. Kitts and Nevis, Minister, now in your presentation during the last Parliament, you spoke about the circular economy, and persons who are looking, and those listening this time would have been able to hear your voice in terms of the presentation that you made within Parliament on March 26th, and you spoke about the circular economy. What exactly is the circular economy and how does it fit into this battle?
Okay, I'm happy you asked that question, so my teacher mode is on. SDG 12, ensuring sustainable consumption and production, speaks to circularity, and the circular economy here, very simply put, it's everything that's involved in the production cycle. It's sharing, leasing, repairing, refurbishing, recycling, upcycling. It's just making sure that that one product which comes off of the factory line is used several times before it ends up in the landfill, or even when it does, it's in a different form. So we don't have to go back through another production cycle. We're making use of it. And there are some countries like like India, where they're king of circularity. The garbage is just continuously a waste. It's continuously reused into something else. And we're pushing the circular economy as pillar 6 in the Sustainable Island State agenda. And that's because the landfill only has so much life. I mean, director and I and some board member directors and the PHAS, we went to the landfill this morning, and it's alarming. Like when you're there, it's mountains of garbage and also plastics. Plastic bottles, every single type. And what we're pushing is you must recycle. We must find a way to prevent these items from going back into the environment, into the landfill. But importantly, circularity promotes economic wealth, right? Sustainability. There's money in garbage. There's energy in garbage. We just have to extract that with the right partnerships.
Now, how do you respond to the comments? And Mr. Edmeade, I'd like to hear from you as well too. For those who suggest that St. Kitts and Nevis does not produce a significant amount of plastic waste and should not necessarily implement a ban.
Okay, well, first of all, I like the way the minister kind of ended her presentation just now as it relates to your question, in terms of the fact that we journeyed to solid waste this morning to really look at what is there. Now, I start there because there are persons who would say that we may not generate enough waste, but some of these persons do not even know the type of waste that is at the landfill, because they never really took the time to really go there to recognize the amount of waste that we are producing and the mountains of waste that we have there over years. I asked the question to one of the presenters this morning in terms of how much longer that the landfill has, and he gave me a number, but he said that is just a number. But based on the waste that we're generating, that number doesn't really mean much. The number is just there because when the landfill was created, that was the lifespan of that. So for persons who are saying that we don't generate enough waste, I can say to you that that is just a perception. But the rate at which the St. Kitts and Nevis is developing, the rate at which we are changing to a lot of the new ways of doing things. Plastic seems to be the new way of even packaging these new things. So over the years, what we are seeing is an increase in the amount of plastic waste that is being deposited at the landfill and within our environment. I looked at the situation. I asked the presenter again in terms of just to get an idea. Do you always used to have so much waste? He said no. It's just over the waste, just the plastic. Sorry, the plastic waste is what? It's just there's an uptick, because everything now that we have, plastic is cheap, so it's always wrapped in some form of plastic.
And that would speak to the importation of goods. We don't package them. That's how they come.
Correct. And that is why we don't package them. That is how they come. That is why we now, as a government, have to find a way in which to deal with the type of waste that enters our federation.
If I may, I'd really like to also respond to that question.
Sure.
It's a conversation, Minister, of course. As we always say, jump in anywhere.
I think it's important to respond here also to persons with social media platforms, persons in the media, persons in schools, anywhere where you have a voice where a collective of persons would respond to you or listen to you. It's important to say that, as some people may think that, St. Kitts is doing this plastic thing, we're following the international community. Plastic pollution in St. Kitts and Nevis is a problem for St. Kitts and Nevis. It is not just an international problem. We're not shipping our garbage anywhere. So we had to ensure that the ban on plastic was unique to St. Kitts and Nevis and unique to the needs of our stakeholders and consumers. And oftentimes people tend to mix plastic with climate change. It's not a direct link. But what is a problem at the landfill, it's the methane that's produced from the buried garbage. That gas is, I don't even know, it's more potent than CO2 in the atmosphere. And which means it's a more problematic greenhouse gas, which then leads to global warming. But plastic pollution for us, because plastic is directly linked to coast and marine pollution, and it's the marine resources that we need. We eat the fish from our coast, so we must protect them. We must do something about the plastics that are in St. Kitts and Nevis. So I think we need to use our platforms as responsibly as possible. So I'm happy that you invited us here again. And today we're making a commitment to share our media kit to every social media influencer, every podcaster, every radio and TV outlet, so that the message is clear for St. Kitts and Nevis. It's our garbage. We generated it. We have to do something about it.
And so an important question that begs to be answered then is, what items fall within the scope of this ban?
Right. Director.
Okay. I'm happy that you asked that question, because again, we want to make sure that persons who would have heard the minister's message really understand what the details of the message is, so it was really intended to be. I can go through the phases, if that is okay.
Well, we want to jump to the phase a bit later on in terms of the timelines, but the item specifically, yes.
Okay, so we're thinking of t-shirt shopping bags. That would be the shopping bags that you normally go to the supermarket with. You know, many people just say shopping bag, but they really t-shirt shopping
I was surprised to hear that. That's the first time.
So yes. It's the t-shirt shopping bags, and it's just the plastic bags that, you know, you get with your groceries. Now,
or from a restaurant.
Or from a restaurant, exactly.
Or when you go to the shop to buy clothes.
Minister is highlighting the things.
Well, some people think. I was at a restaurant yesterday, and I was like, oh yes, they're here. They're at the supermarkets. They're all over. So t-shirt shopping bags.
So that was plastic bags, and I'm going to take my time, if you know, because I want persons to really understand, because there are some misconceptions as it relates to what is banned and what is not going to be. So plastic bags. That's the only plastic bag that I'm going to refer to in the ban, because I've heard what I'm going to put my bread in, what I'm going to put my fish in, I've heard we're going to put my sugar in. There's a whole lot of conversation. But for the general public, the only bag is the shopping bag that we get from the supermarket and all the other areas that the minister just said she get hers from. Right? So you don't have to worry about any other plastic bag but the shopping bag from the supermarket, the other places, the t-shirt shopping bag. We're also looking at the styrofoam, the styrofoam food containers, straws, food utensils such as your knife, your plate, your forks, and those kind of things. And these are what we call the low-hanging fruits, and the things that we find are more impactful to the environment. These are the things that you're more likely to find within the environment. Now, with those few words, you realize I said nothing about plastic bottles. Again, I've heard in also other story, what are the vendors going to put the coconut water in? What they're going to put those on the street, we're going to put the fruit drinks in. Plastic bottles is not a part of the ban. I want it to be clear, because I heard a lot of stories. Okay, I don't know if they're trying to put a scare in the atmosphere, but I'm here to try to calm persons, to let them know that the items that are being banned are items that we will be able to find easy alternatives for, and the government of St. Kitts and Nevis, guided by my good minister who is providing that advice, has really taken them into consideration in terms of agreeing to the items, because we're not going to agree to items that we know will be an impact to your wallet or to your livelihood.
And I think the important aspect to point out, as we say, it's single-use plastics.
Correct.
You use a styrofoam container, you're not going to take it home and use it again, essentially. Right, so that is the important thing too. Once it's used, you toss it. That's what the government initiative is trying to get rid of. Right, and so Mr. Edmeade, you mentioned that, of course, the conversation has begun some time ago, and even before, in some instances, before you got to the department. So the question is then, how did this move by the government impact the staff of the department, who's been the biggest proponent, really, of having a single-use plastic ban, really?
Well, for me, I must say that when the minister made the presentation in March, for the Department of Environment, being the director, it was a big accomplishment. Why a big accomplishment? Because I can go way back down to 2015 or 16, when the Department of Environment was attached to physical planning. we started the initiative in terms of trying to get persons aware of the impacts of plastic. We went as far as to purchase and bring in reusable shopping bags. Back then, Best Buy was the smaller, looking at the, there was a smaller building where they are now. We went there, we freely gave them bags. We did some at the Ram, some at Valuemart, because we saw, I don't know if we had foresight then, but we saw something like this coming. So we started to get persons aware of the plastic situation. So from where we started with physical planning and environment to where we are now at with the Ministry of Environment, Climate Action and Constituency Empowerment, for us, it's a big achievement, a big accomplishment, because it means that the groundwork that we would have put in over almost 10 years ago, we are now seeing that the awareness, the campaigns that we would have really blossomed, and we are now transitioning as the government has currently stated and continuously to state, to move into a more sustainable and green economy.
Did we borrow any of the best practices from any of the models that were considered across the region very quickly?
Well, sure. We have looked at, the Minister mentioned Antigua, that is one we have looked at. We have looked at what St. Lucia have been doing in terms of this. So most of our documentation that the Minister can provide, as he said in the kit, were examples that we took from different plans that we would have seen around the Caribbean. So that, and then we fix it to make sure that it suits what St. Kitts and Nevis want to do in our band, because not everything in their plan was suitable for us.
Of course, St. Kitts and Nevis introduced, I think it was back in 2023, no plastic Mondays, no plastic bag Mondays, and we want to talk a bit more about that, but we're going to take a quick break first. So we encourage you to stay right there, and viewers, listeners, stay right there. We'll be right back with more In Focus. Welcome back to In Focus. We continue our conversations on the ban in St. Kitts and Nevis of single-use plastics and how it will be rolled out across the Federation. And joining me is the Minister responsible for the Environment and Climate Action, the Honourable Dr. Joyelle Clarke, and Derionne Edmeade, Director within the Department of Environment. So we spoke about, before we left, no plastic bag Mondays, and persons who are looking at this live on ZIZ and also online would have seen the infographic there where it was introduced back in June 2023 last year. How did the impact of that no plastic bag Mondays influence what we are seeing now with the plastic ban on single-use plastics?
Okay, so first of all, when it comes to change, persons always react. So for us, when we introduced it, when it blossomed from the Department of Environment and so warmly received by our good minister, we decided, let's try this in the supermarket. So, of course, we had to really reach out to them first to explain to them exactly what we want to do, because, it's a business decision. Because you want to make sure if one supermarket is doing it, the other one is doing it as well. So from the exercise over the month of June, we had mixed responses. From the customers, not so much the supermarket retailers and so forth, just from the customers, because it's a behavior change that we are still building on. And it was received by some very well. The retailers, of course, were on board, hence why they allowed us to come there. There are some who, even after we slowed down or stopped the process, continued. So we see it as a more or less like a little drop in the bucket to pique interest. Because today, I can tell you there are some stores that are still doing no plastic, continue doing it on their own. From this initiative, I can make mention of another supermarket who I have seen have now transitioned to biodegradable shopping bags because of this initiative. Because when we went to them at the first time, they never had any. Or they had it, but it was not in St. Kitts. It was maybe in a different country in which they operate. But we have now seen that particular business, that particular retailer, that particular supermarket is now giving you biodegradable bags. I don't want to go too far, because I don't know if you have another question on it, but another local business have also started producing plastic bags that are biodegradable.
Yeah.
So even though it was just no plastic bag Mondays for a month, some continued after that, but the behavior change has been very impactful.
I would like to say also that on Mondays, although I don't do supermarkets on Mondays I deliberately went to the supermarkets and we were stationed there, and you would see people arguing like, you're not giving me a plastic bag, and the supermarket cashiers would be like, but we have these canvas bags that you can buy, or you can go back to your car. And we saw people leaving with the bread and the egg in their hand.
Right.
Or the chicken in their hand. They're like, well, I don't have a bag. They say no plastic bag, it's fine. But my phone blew up, like all of our phones, and even colleagues who would be like, oh, so I could put my grapes in a plastic bag, in a styrofoam crate in a plastic bag, but I can't leave the supermarket with a t-shirt bag. And I'm like, yeah, you can't. And although it's a well-meaning conversation, like you can't just ban this and not that. The point is, every mickle makes a muckle. You have to start somewhere, and we started with the item that was most problematic. And the transition has been welcome because your attitude changes, like it's a problem, you're inconveniencing me, but your behavior then changes because you know when you go to the supermarket, there's no plastic bag for you to get unless you want to buy it, which is a best practice internationally. Or you turn around and you get your canvas bag. And even yesterday was my parents' anniversary, so we went for lunch, and when we were taking the food away, my mom said, oh, you can't go with the plastic bag because you done ban the plastic, so you can't walk nowhere with no plastic. And my dad was like, for sure, because you're gonna be on the radio tomorrow, on the TV tomorrow. And I was like, okay, I cannot walk with the plastic bag. But it's also just being true to the narrative that you are selling to the people of St. Kitts and being part of the process.
Right. Oh, so then the question is, what alternatives will be there for persons to use? Those are not going to be able to use the t-shirt shopping bags and the styrofoam containers. What are the alternatives?
Well, first of all, there are two main alternatives that I could speak to. One, you already made mention of the reusable tote bags. That is something that is found in many of the supermarkets today. I can honestly say that I have one from each, because I like to show off, because if you're preaching something, you must practice it. So I have the cloth one, that the canvas one. I also have a kind of plastic one that is a more durable kind of plastic, not the normal, the single use that you'll find here that I bought from the Europe. Because when I see them, because when I go there, I have to buy it. So when I buy it knowing that this is coming to St. Kitts, so I stocking up. So when I go and they're giving them away free, I take them, because I know what's coming. So that is one. I've made mention also of the biodegradable plastic. So even for those who are wondering, but when you take away the t-shirt shopping bags, what's going to happen to my garbage? Because some of us say we save them for garbage. The reusable or the biodegradable bag would replace that, because the only difference is that the biodegradable breaks down so much faster. The normal bag, it will just steady in the environment. So even though we are saying no t-shirt and you're wondering, oh, what's going to happen to the garbage, there's an alternative for that.
And it's interesting that you mentioned the biodegradable bags, because there would have been situations where persons would have bought their the garbage bags, the heavy-duty ones, to cover whether it be a suitcase or something that they would prefer to keep protected. And they were shocked to find that after a while, there are holes in the bag. That's because they're biodegradable.
Yes.
Right. And so that is something that we would have to get used to. And of course, in addition to the bags, as you mentioned, there are boxes and paper bags that persons can consider. And I know that there are a number of businesses and even some churches, etc., who would give out, if they have presentations to make, they give cloth bags. That shows that they have bought, and I can mention in particular, the Antioch Baptist Church had a fundraiser, dinner, and they were served in biodegradable styrofoam. Well, they're not styrofoam, but biodegradable containers.
You remember when Cash and Carry started and they didn't have plastic bags at all, and we literally had to go in the corner and take a box to take our stuff out?
Yes.
We will adapt. We will change.
Yes. So the question is then, will there be some sort of a concession, some sort of incentives to bringing in these type of materials now to replace the t-shirt shopping bags?
Let me call the Minister of Finance. I know what's going on. Of course there will be concessions. It's standard practice across the region. What is contextualized to St. Kitts and Nevis, and this is another argument for it's not just taking a program wholesale, but making sure it works for our population and for our consumers and stakeholders. It's what would the concession look like? And I want to make it very clear, because I was in several conversations after, do you know how much it costs to sell a burger in the country? $10. Do you know how much it costs the burger in town? $30. I cannot sell a burger for $15 because of a biodegradable container in the country. And I understand the conversation, and I understand the fear. However, we're going to make sure that small and medium enterprises aren't at risk. We're going to work very closely with the Ministry of Small Businesses to make sure the concessions that are presented tailored to those who are going to feel it the most. And to take the conversation even further, when we consulted with the government of Canada, thanks to the mission in Canada there, we also were reminded that the bans and the concessions have to take into consideration persons living with disabilities, what options are available for them, how expensive is the transition going to be for them, and what concessions we can provide for various homes, households, and businesses. So those will be presented by the Ministry of Finance. The director is working very closely with the Customs and Excise Department to ensure that whether the concessions are given over 1 year, 2 year, or 5 year period, it allows for people to transition their businesses and not transfer the cost to the consumers. Government is willing to partner to absorb as much as possible.
And so the ban will be done in phases that we established, and we will speak a bit more about the phases, but those who have the existing stocks, what happens to them?
Right, so okay, I'll start, and then the director will come in with the existing stock, because that's a conversation we had with the supermarkets and those persons who have the items before we decided the time frame for the ban. And you note that where there's a ban on importation, because we've given an 8-month window for the ban on importation and single-use plastics, and then an additional 6-month window on the ban for distribution. And we were mindful to connect with the restaurants, with the supermarkets, etc., on how long would their stock last and how often do they replenish, so they know there is no need to purchase anymore. You have to switch to biodegradable. So, right. Director.
Yes, and the distribution, as the minister would have mentioned, is that if based on how we have it, it's the ban on the importation, and then 3 months later we have a ban on distribution. How that works is that we want to make sure that we give the retailers, those persons who have the bags in country up until March, for example, next year, to ensure that they use up all of that. One of the background work that we did is that we had that conversation with all of the different wholesalers, retailers, and so forth, to see about how many of this particular item do you import per year, and to get an idea about how many do you have in stock, because we wanted to ensure that the ban is not implemented in a way where I personally might have already been in a year stock, and then you just come and drop a ban on me within a month or two. What's going to happen to that stock? So we did that background check. Some say they do a year, some say 3 months, some different businesses do it in a different way. So we try to use a time frame that would give everybody a chance to really use up what they have. I use the plastic because that's the first one, for example, and the minister technically gave businesses, let's say, a whole year, because it's not until next year March. I don't think much person bringing a year stock of plastic t-shirt shopping bag, so it's enough time. And the other items, I mean, after that, you still have over a year time to really use up all of that work. So in implementing the phases or the different plans in what we have, again, I like to refer to my good minister, because she really look out for the persons who are going to be impacted, and she spoke about the small business and so forth. So these were her ideas in terms of extending the timeline to ensure that nobody is hurt, and there's some form of benefit for everybody for those who already have those things in country.
This is the month of April. The St. Kitts Music Festival is fast approaching. And plastic cups, of course, is included. Single-use plastic cups, I may use that term, and it's important to always stress single-use. They are included on the list as well. And persons are wondering, well, I won't be able to get the bottle. I won't be able to use the cup when the ban becomes enforced. What can I use?
Well, I can say, one of the things that I can say to that, I don't go music festival too often, right?
Too often.
Too often. And I don't go to the fetes too often. But there's one thing that I always see coming out of a lot of these fetes are branded items. You don't normally see a lot of the single-use plastic cups that we're referring to. You're seeing the more reusable hard cup with the information branded on them. So, yes, I understand the question, but the impact there is not as, unless we start dealing with a local vendor.
And that's what the point I was going to make, because the organizers themselves, branding is fine, but they are the ones who can bear the more cost. But what about the vendors who are selling on from their little trade?
Yes, so then the local vendor, I can refer to them now. I should have walked with my options and put them on display, is that just the way the raw plastic look, the normal plastic look, there's an alternative for that, bioplastic. I did some demonstration in a presentation recently, and persons could not tell the difference between the plastic cup that we're banning, the single-use plastic cup, and the alternative. They look so much the same. So every single item that persons in the public may question, there is an alternative exactly like it. If you're worrying about the styrofoam and the kind of, we have one that is the cardboard one where they say, oh, your food gonna get sucked. So there is a bioplastic alternative for that. And in the event people are wondering where we're gonna get them from, trust me, from my background research and conversation with the retailers, the alternatives are available. They're just waiting for the Honorable Minister and the Minister of Foreign Affairs to tell them what the concession is going to be, because they already have their market. The same way they have their market for the plastic, the same way they have the market for the alternative, but there was not a push for them to bring it at this point in time because this ban was not in place or announced.
I should also say that the Minister of Tourism has already committed to having a plastic-free carnival. Of course, we're going to have to negotiate concessions for that time for the small vendors, but that's a negotiation. That's a cabinet negotiation with the Ministry of Finance, with our financial secretary, to make sure the burden is well placed. But because I do go to the fetes and to the music festival, and I will be there front row, center, live and direct, you can party sustainably. You can drink from your paper cup, or for those who want to sip on one drink for 5 hours, you can party with your hard plastic cup. The options are available, and this is where we want our creative economy to take over full force in terms of options, the branding, the marketing of the biodegradable options or harder plastics that could go over and over. I think we had Sol Rojo last week, and there was not a single plastic item at Sol Rojo. Everything was biodegradable, and there are promoters who are willing to come on board. We had the same thing for Carnival to get into if the troops reached out to us as a ministry and said, we are ready to transition our events to plastic free, support us. So if they are ready, I know the people of St. Kitts will be ready and welcome a plastic free music festival.
And importantly, as you mentioned, St. Kitts and Nevis, of course, is the last in terms of implementing the single-use plastic ban within the OECS. And so the question is, when they go to Antigua for their festivals or their carnival, where they go to St. Lucia, they have to party without these things.
They have to, and every fete, every event gives you a thermos or a plastic bottle or something that you can reuse. So it's a culture change. There are cost implications, but more importantly, there are branding opportunities and marketing opportunities and partnerships with the relevant agencies to get there.
There is a thriving plastic factory situated at Bird Rock. How is this going to affect them?
Good news.
Yeah, well, that plastic factory, the department also had a chance to sit with them. In fact, we visited them twice. The first time we went, they were not, we were a bit skeptical about it, in terms of how it's going to impact them. We were a bit fearful, But when we went back recently, this year, we are amazed to see that they're saying that they have been preparing for this transition, for this ban for a while, from our first conversation, and they already started to make the biodegradable bags. Every single one that if they're worrying about the bread bags, Montreal Plastic has it. Farmers bags, they have it. The t-shirt shopping bag, they have it. Free promotion for Montreal Plastic.
I know, but
you can go there and get your biodegradable plastic bags. So we took them into consideration because we wanted to make sure that whatever we are doing would not impact what's going on locally. So if businesses want to get biodegradable plastics, check Montreal Plastic. They're there, they're ready, and you know the change, as the minister said, it's one that we'll have to take our time and step by step embrace, but together we can get it done. So Montreal Plastic is on board, they are ready. The water companies, I'm hoping at some point in time they may even transition to a more biodegradable plastic bottle, something that is, you know, I've seen some around already that is plant-based and so forth. So it's just a way in which, you know, just a way to get persons to change their thinking and their methods of producing. And
as you mentioned, the plastic bottles are not included currently, right. So that would be down the line if, you know, of course, they want to go ahead and take the next step as Montreal Plastics and others have done. Because business really is all about innovation.
True. Yeah. And that is why the ministry did not interfere with the plastic bottles. Because some persons might say, why recycle just back? No, we can't do that. Because first of all, you have local manufacturers the water companies who serve in their bottles, and then we're also not a manufacturing federation. We don't import, we don't make drinks. The drinks that we import, the juices and so forth, they're all plastic. I could remember, you know, growing up, you know, you used to have your soda in the glass bottle, and then we switched to plastic. And we are worrying about that change, how it's going to affect us, but we have managed. So it's the same way I look at this change. Yes, it's fresh. Yes, some persons are wondering what they're going to do and how they're going to make it, but the ministry, with the leadership of Senator Clarke, we're going to work, and we're willing to work to ensure that small businesses, large businesses, medium businesses are in a position where the ban that we're introducing will not be so impactful that it affects their livelihood.
Minister, where does solid waste fall in all of this? Of course, you have responsibility for the agency.
I wish I could share the video that I took this morning of the mountains of plastic with our editors, producers in the back, and I could show during the break, because there are at least 3 huge cells of plastics, and they are higher than this building. There are plastics without, which are in plastic bottles, in plastic bags. There are just mountains of plastics, and then there is a baler in operation. And this is a serious partnership between Solid Waste Management Corporation, the Ministry of Environment, and the Republic of China and Taiwan. This program is a start to the plastic, to dealing with plastic pollution. And I think I should mention, and I just got the message here from Minister Councillor Eustace, who's preparing for the ministry's team in Canada as the Director Edmeade and a colleague from the Bureau of Standards head to INC4, which is the Intergovernmental Negotiation Committee on Plastics, and it's really to push for a legally binding resolution on plastics. And we're preparing, the permanent secretary and myself, and on the invitation of the government of Canada, to head there for a 2-day interministerial session on how they can support the government of St. Kitts and Nevis in moving ahead with its plastic ban, and really developing a cost-benefit analysis for how it's going to affect every stakeholder in St. Kitts and Nevis. So solid waste is so critical in this, because the landfill is already chock full with our own garbage, and then there are more cells of plastic bottles that need to be baled and shipped out. Baled and shipped out. And I think last week we sat with the Rotary Club, and there was a suggestion that we need to start recycling the plastic bottles and get the pellets to move on to something else. And our response was, we welcome this, because solid waste cannot do it. the Ministry of Environment, we cannot do it, but we welcome the partnership from the private sector to move into recycling. I don't want to get too much into waste to energy, but you asked me about solid waste, and this is really the cabinet of our cabinet has given the directive to the Ministry of Environment and Solid Waste Management Corporation to work with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to come up with a solution as it relates to waste to energy, circularity. We have to find a way to make sure that we will never have a new landfill. Let me just put that very clear. There's not going to be a landfill in Connery, in Keyon, in Sandy Point, nowhere else in the country. And this is set in our National Physical Development Plan, the updated version. And Director Farrier is going to present that very soon. If there's not going to be another landfill, then what are we going to do with our garbage when, according to landfill operations manager Bedford, the landfill has 20 more years? And that's a very, 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 that's like a conservative figure. It doesn't have 20 more years. It's at the end. So how are we going to save solid waste, and how are we going to manage the garbage that's there? And if I may, just indulge me just a few more minutes. Solid Waste Management Corporation started when it started under the then Minister of Health, Dr. Asin Martin, and our first manager, Mr. Alfonso Bridgewater. That was visionary. Some 20 years, that was visionary to understand that we needed to move beyond just a dump and burning the garbage to having sanitary cells, to having the landfill, a management. And now with our new general manager, Nelvin Maynard, and the board, we are hearing the call for recycling solutions and waste management and waste to energy. And it starts with eliminating one of the biggest problems, the plastic bottles and the plastics.
So the question is that some persons may ask is, isn't it just a matter of recycling better rather than banning?
No, it is not. Why? Because both have to work in tandem. There are some items that we have to say as a country, we want no more of these items in our country. We cannot manage. And then there is a matter of pushing the behavioral change, which is the recycling, which is the collecting, the sorting, and the recycling, which again, I have to compliment the Ministry of Education for really pushing the recycling agenda, you know. I mean, those students went all out and continue to go all out as it relates to extracting plastic bottles from their garbage and preparing them for baling and shipping. And we want to go towards recycling, but as I said, in partnership. So it's also, it's like, if you continuously recycle, but you also just continuously bring the same things to your country, when you'll be a hamster on a wheel, when will it ever end? So the bans were essential, not just because we need to meet international obligations, but for St. Kitts and Nevis. This federal project needed to respond to the huge amount of unusable single-use plastics, after one use rather, that we cannot manage. And I am not trying to be an alarmist when I say the Solid Waste Management Corporation, which started under Dr. Aston Martin and Alfonso Bridgewater, it can't take anymore. So our attitude towards garbage, our attitude towards waste, and how we send garbage over there has to adjust now, including our behavior.
And so we're going to delve a bit more in terms of the timelines now for this ban and when it's going to be implemented, but we're going to take a very short break and then we'll have that discussion. We'll be right back. We encourage you to stay with us for more In Focus.
If you haven't done it as yet, please do it today. Subscribe to our YouTube page at SKNIS Media for regular updates, live coverage, and even more information on your government. While you're at it, like, share, and interact with our Facebook and Instagram pages at SKNIS Media and SKNIS Info.
Welcome back to In Focus. We continue our discussion with the Minister responsible for the environment and climate action, the Honorable Dr. Joyelle Clarke, and Derionne Edmeade, the Director of the Department of Environment, and we are discussing the ban on single-use plastics here in St. Kitts and Nevis. Now, we spoke about the phases. There are 3 phases, Minister, that you would have outlined during your presentation in Parliament. Mr. Edmeade, Minister, share with us the implementation of these timelines.
Okay, so the first phase, which is the T-shirt shopping bag, there is a ban on the importation by December 31st, which is this year, 2024. Meaning there's a ban. What that really means is that by December the 31st of 2024, no T-shirt shopping bags will be allowed to enter the Federation. So that's the first phase. Once they're in the Federation, the implementation has been, the importation ban has started. You have until March 31st, 2025 to use what you have. So that's the first phase. The second phase deals with styrofoam food containers, plastic straws, including stuff like egg boxes and the trays. That phase starts April the 30th, 2025. That's when you'll have a ban on importation on those items. The 30th of April 2025. Those items, styrofoam food containers, plastic straws, including styrofoam, including the egg boxes and the trays and so forth. 2025. That's the ban on importation. The ban on distribution of those items would be July the 31st, 2025. The third and the final phase is the ban on the importation of more of the utensils, such as the cups, the straw, the forks, the spoons, and so forth. That would be August the 31st. And then 3 months from there would be the ban on the distribution.
As an individual, I have these things in my house. The ban is in full effect, as you mentioned, the timelines are there, of course. Am I prevented from using them still?
The ban is really for commercial use, commercial distribution especially. So to answer your question, I start there first. To answer your question, if you have your little plastic bag inside of your household after let's say after the ban on distribution of any one of the dates, we're saying that you use what you have. You use it, and then that's it. But it's really for commercial. The problem is commercial distribution. When it is on a mass scale, that's where the issue is going to lie. Because the fact that you would have a ban on importation and a ban on distribution, you've already started the process of minimizing the waste. So if you have, let's say, 1 or 2 still left in your household, the impact that particular waste will have would be very minimal, if any.
Okay. Minister, talk to us a bit about our international partners in this project now, and regional partners, of course.
Yes. Okay. So I want to say again, I can't help but saying that thanks to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs for the support, the diplomatic support on our environmental agenda. And this goes far beyond even plastic. It's for our climate agenda in particular, that we can't do anything with other countries without the foreign service officers and diplomats. And that's why for plastics in particular, I want to take a moment. I like to big up people and say who would really help with the work, if I'm allowed. So our newly appointed High Commissioner in Canada, I really hope that I use the right term, Mr. Samuel Berridge and his team, but in particular Minister Councillor Eustace Wallace, has been a tremendous support in connecting us with our partners in Canada who have been providing us all the help and the guidance. If I open my phone now, there are messages in here from Eustace about things that I should say. And that's really what's important, that you have the right language and you acknowledge who has been there with us. When the team heads to Canada, it's also a welcoming experience, because April 22nd is Earth Day, and it's about plastic pollution and the commitment. And the ministerial sessions that we have to sit in, it's how can you help us now? We've done what we needed to do. We've done the consultations. We've made the ban. We're now going towards the legislation in our upcoming NSEMA bill. We may even consider a standalone piece of legislation for plastics, because that's how seriously we take this initiative. And we could not do it without the support of the OECS and without the support of Canada. And importantly, we can't do these things without showing up. If our negotiators don't show up to that meeting, we've essentially lost an opportunity to say this is how it's impactful for St. Kitts and Nevis, and this is our position as a small island developing state, as a coastal state, as a large ocean state, that's why it's important for us for plastics. And we can't do this if ministers don't show up to negotiate and shake hands in good faith and sign documents to commit to partnerships. And we definitely won't be able to do any of this without the work of the diplomatic corps that represents St. Kitts and Nevis. So I want to thank them. That's how we got here, and that's how we're going to continue making strides as a federation.
And of course, the Republic of China, Taiwan has also been a big supporter.
Excellent partner. I mean, I don't even know how to explain the support that Ambassador and his team has given to us. I think last year I said, looking forward to another year of support, and they extended the support, and they're moving to phase 2 of our recycling program, and that's not a small amount of support, neither in effort nor in resources. The Republic of China and Taiwan, thank you for that excellent point, they are our greatest friends when it comes to the recycling program and the plastic ban, and they have been with us. And I think the Judith from Solid Waste and team went to Taiwan to train. So they're not just offering the language, they're not just offering the resources, they're offering the training opportunities for all of our environmental initiatives, and the commitment to work with us as we transition to a sustainable island state. Foreign Affairs is doing it for the Ministry of Environment, and some people, we never are able to see why we need so many diplomats or what the Foreign Service desk does. That's what they do. They negotiate, they lobby, they sit, they talk, and then we show up and we continue the negotiations.
We have just about 3 minutes left. I'll give you an opportunity to make any final comments.
Okay, I'll let the director go first.
All right, so first of all, I want to thank you for the opportunity, even for the department to come and radio to really speak to the persons, clarify the items that are really on the ban list, because the person need to understand that it's not just a ban, but it's really something that the government of St. Kitts and Nevis is doing as it relates to how we're going to combat the plastic issues that we are currently facing. And the items that are on the ban list are items that were clearly thought, items that we think that we can easily, or not think, but we know that we can easily move away from to reduce the impact that is having not only on the environment but also on the solid waste landfill. And I just want to encourage the persons listening that stay tuned to the awareness that the Department of let me say the Ministry of Environment is going to do. Any questions, any concerns, feel free to reach out to us. We'll be ready to respond to those questions.
Yes, and I want to say that true to form, I opened my phone and here is a message from Mr. Wallace. Don't forget the health element of it and the nanoplastics in your blood and your heart. And a message here that scientists found tiny microplastics in people's arteries. And we're a fish culture, we're a fish eating population. The fish right out there, if plastic bottles end up in the ocean, we've seen this for years, turtles mistaking plastic bags for jellyfish. We consume the same animals from the marine, from the ocean that consume plastics. We inhale microplastics. So the responsibility for St. Kitts and Nevis, it's not just an international mandate, it's life and death. It's cancer that is cancerous. Cancer causing rather many of these plastic items, and we never know when we'll reach the tipping point of not being able to deal with anything or have so many people being diagnosed with cancer, and it's because of the diet that we have, and it's not and it's a situation where it's the microplastics in our food. So no matter how much you eat fish and avoid pork, if you feel that's healthy, or how much you eat vegetables and avoid processed food, you're picking it up in the environment because of how it's so connected. So my last plea, even though I'm not a medical doctor, it's let's really think about the impact on our health and our environment, and let's really think about the future. We want to St. Kitts and Nevis in 40 years, and we have to work now for the future that we envision for our children, for our family, and for St. Kitts and Nevis. So this plastic mandate, it protects us. We have to deal with our garbage.
An important element within the Sustainable Island State agenda. Minister responsible for the environment and climate action, the Honorable Dr. Joyelle Clarke, Derionne Edmeade, Director of the Department of Environment. Thank you so much for being with us, and we look forward to hearing from you, not just here at InFocus, but also in other media, radio outlets, and we expect to see your pushing, championing the charge out there. And of course, setting the example, no plastic bags from restaurants.
No, none whatsoever.
We'd like to thank you, viewers and listeners, for being with us for this edition of InFocus. We trust that you will join us next week at the same place, at the same time. For now, I'm Ian Richards.
Join us every Wednesday for InFocus, a weekly talk show produced by the St. Kitts Nevis Information Service, where we provide exclusives with key persons within the government and discuss pertinent, relevant, and interesting matters that affect us all. Tune in every Wednesday, live on ZIZ Radio and streamed live on Facebook at SKNIS Media and ZIZ Online. InFocus, your government, your business.